James Harden is easily one of, if not the biggest trade target this offseason. Harden has stated that he wants to join a contending team this season. His top landing spots currently are both the Brooklyn Nets and Philadelphia 76ers. In today's video, I'm going to explain to you guys how a Harden to the Sixers trade would not only benefit the Sixers, but the Rockets as well. Let's start off with a little background information just to get us started. As we all know, this season, after trading Clint Capella in February, the Rockets starting center was PJ Tucker, who is just 6 foot 5 inches tall. This caused a lot of struggles for the Rockets come playoff time. They got beat easily by the Lakers in 5 games, only won game 1. Harden averaged 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists in this series. The main reason they lost is because of their lack of a center in the starting lineup. Now let's take a look at how Harden has played with a real true center such as Clint Capella. In the 2019 playoffs, the Rockets breezed past the Jazz in a 5-game series and then lost to the Warriors in 6. This is, of course, the Warriors team that had KD, Steph, Clay, and Draymond. So the fact that they even took them 6 games is a really impressive feat. In games 3 and 4, the 2 the Rocket won, Harden scored both 41 and 38 points and phenomenal performances in back-to-back games. Then we go back to 2018, where the Rockets were the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They easily took down the Wolves in a 5-game series, then took out the Jazz once again in 5 games. And then in the Western Conference Finals, matched up with the Golden State Warriors for a chance at the NBA Finals. Harden and the Rockets gave the Warriors a run for their money, losing in Game 7 by just 9 points to the same stacked Warriors team. Harden also managed to average 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists in this series as well. Now, I understand that CP3 was on the roster, so it was a little different than what we saw this season, but I still think it shows that Harden has had way more success with a quality center, and this is why a trade to the Sixers to pair with Joel Embiid would be ideal. Now, let's talk about the Sixers. The Sixers, as we all know, have been a quality playoff contender for the past 3 years. Although they've made some good runs, there's one really big problem that they've faced, which has been the issue of running an offense with both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons, of course, cannot score outside of 10 feet from the hoop, and it causes tons of issues for Joel Embiid, who is a phenomenal post scorer. Every team can double him, and even if they don't, Ben simply clogs the paint and leaves Joel no choice but to stretch the floor, which he can do, but he really doesn't do it as efficiently as other bigs in the league like Nikola Jokic, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis, any of those guys. I feel that Joel would strive without that paint being so crowded and with a natural 3-level scorer like Harden on his team, and I think I can prove it. As we all know, Ben Simmons went down with a knee injury 2 games before the playoffs and the bubble started because he needed knee surgery, which would end his entire season. This means that Embiid got to play without Simmons clogging the paint through the entire playoffs, so let's see how the stats compare. With Ben Simmons playing for the whole regular season and all the bubble games he was there, Joel Embiid averaged 23 points, 11.6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1.3 blocks. Without Ben Simmons playing throughout the playoffs, Embiid averaged 30 points, 12.3 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.3 blocks, and 1.5 steals. I think this clearly shows that other than assists, Joel Embiid improved all around in every stat and just overall played better without Ben Simmons clogging the paint and taking up his valuable post time. Now let's talk about how this trade would go down. I think this trade would have to be something along the lines of Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and 3 future first-round picks for James Harden. Now, I did make sure, because Harden doesn't have to be paid until the 2023 season, and Ben doesn't have to be paid until 2022, these contracts will match up just fine, so that's already in the clear. Now, of course, this looks good for the Sixers, as we all know, but what about the Houston Rockets? Well, for one, Harden clearly wants out, so I really feel that getting a player like Ben Simmons, as well as 3 future first-round picks, is going to be huge. But let's talk about how the Rockets are going to benefit from this. Starting off, let's look at the Rockets roster. They have Christian Wood, a 38% three-point shooter. PJ Tucker, a 35% three-point shooter. Eric Gordon, 31% free throw shooter and former three-point contest champion. Chris Clemens, 34% three-point shooter. Sterling Brown, 32% three-point shooter. Ben McLemore, 40% three-point shooter. And David Nwaba, a 42% three-point shooter. And if they do make this trade, they get Seth Curry, another 40% three-point shooter. Are you noticing a pattern here? The Rockets have stacked their team with guys who can hold their own from the 3-ball. They loved playing small ball in last year's playoffs. I think they can start to build a team here if they can make this trade. I think the Rockets can build a team very similarly to the way the Bucks built around Giannis Antetokounmpo. Simmons would have the paint to work with and have 4 guys around him who could play the perimeter and stretch the floor so that if he gets doubled or any kind of switch happens, he can kick out the ball and have confident, efficient three-point shooters who can score the basketball. Overall, I think making this trade is going to help both the Rockets and the Sixers in the next couple years. That's going to do it for our first video. Leave some suggestions in the comments of any other football or basketball topics you guys want me to talk about. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.